They have to scrape things off, and as you can see, it's scraped off here as well. So, okay, I will read the purport when the purport comes. So this is text 53. Yayor Janman Yado Vishram Abhyanandat Shunir Britham Manam Si Kakubo Vathaha Prasedu Sarito Drayu. On the occasion of the appearance of Nara Narayana, the entire world was full of joy. Everyone's mind became tranquil, and thus, in all the directions, the air, the rivers, and the mountains became pleasant. So then you could ask the question, is it because when Krishna appears, all the astrological calculations, everything is perfect, and so everyone felt good? Or it's because he appeared that everything felt good and all the astrological calculations shifted? And I think you could say both. Obviously, you would feel good if Krishna appeared today. Text 54 and 55. Divya va danta tordhyani petu kushama vrishtayaha monayos tushtuvus tushta jagar gandharva kinkaraha nrityanti sma sriyo devya asit parama mangalam deva brahmadaya sarve upatashtur abhishtabai. In the heavenly planets, bands began to play and they showered flowers from the sky. The pacified sages chanted Vedic prayers, and the denizens of heaven, known as the Gandharvas and Kinnaras, sang. The beautiful damsels, the heavenly planets danced. And in this way, at the time of the appearance of Nara Narayana, all signs of good fortune were visible. Just at that time, great demigods, gods like Brahma, also offered their respectful prayers. So what you notice here is that when he appeared, the demigods were aware of it. And that's interesting. There's like this interplanetary, what should we call it? Interplanetary awareness. It appears that they could actually see. And it doesn't say if they were playing from the heavens down to earth or they came down. But it does show that being a fortunate demigod, you get to, due to some piety or devotional service in the past or great fortune, you get to interact with Krishna. And, the singers and performers of bands, it's a great pleasure if they, can play for huge crowds and big auditoriums and so forth. But what could be better than playing for Krishna? That beats out on anything. Okay, so we'll go to text 56. Deva uchuhu yo mayaya virachitam nijayat ma nidam ke rupa bhedam ivatat pratichakshanaya itena dharma sadane rishi murtinadya pradushchakara purushaya namaha parasmai. Some obeisances are being offered. The demigods said, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the transcendental personality of Godhead, who created as his external energy this cosmic manifestation, which is situated in him as the air and clouds are situated in space, and who has now appeared in the form of Nara Narayana Rishi in the house of Dharma. It's not actually not Nara Narayana, it's Nara Narayana. We English speakers or speakers of other languages we're not used to pronouncing long syllables. So it's actually Narayan. In Sanskrit, Narayana. And an interesting point to note, maybe Prabhupada's we'll talk about it in the purport, but when we talk about Krishna's external energy, for Krishna, it's not really internal and external, it's just his energy. And even for us, although we say it's external energy, but it's how you look at it. Because how can it be external if you see it as Krishna's energies? External. The concept of the word external energy means it's separated from Krishna. And Krishna uses that in the Gita 7th chapter. My Bina Prakriti Ashtada, my separated energies. But the separation is really in our vision. It's not in Krishna's vision. So the pure devotee doesn't really see two energies. It says everything is Krishna's energy. You can call it internal, external. Even Maya, this material energy, for a devotee, it's all favorable. It's used in Krishna service. It helps us in Krishna service. It's not pulling us away from Krishna. So for a pure devotee, really there's no Maya, or we'll say everything. Maya means energy. It's one of the meanings. There is Maya, it's Krishna's energy. There's no separate Maya. That is coming from a vision that we see separate. Now, if you want to enjoy Krishna's energy, then you will see separate. This is mine. So Prabhupada translated Aham Mameti, this is I and this is mine. So now Krishna, that may belong to you, but this is mine. And I am the controller. You're a bigger controller. I'm a controller. Pure devotee doesn't see that. Krishna is the only controller. Everything belongs to him. So there's no black and white, up and down, in and out. Inside energy, outside energy. So let's read the purport and see what Prabhupada says. You want me to, you want to put that in the chat? Or can we can put all the verses in the chat. And we could take down this. And in that way, you get to read the purport along with me. If that's possible to take down the, and Chaitanya Dasi, you want to put it in the chat? And then we can read the purport. Become enlightened. Okay. Or you want me to put it in? I have it ready. I can put it in. We'll have a race here. See who runs faster. Whoops. Your message is too long. Oh. You have that problem? It's not that long. Your message, please try multiple. Oh, it must be a new feature now. Is it? Maybe, can I share my screen? Let's see if this works. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. That's the upcoming, hold on. There we go. Okay, you get to look at my computer. The universal form of the Lord is the cosmic manifestation, which is an exhibition of the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In space, there are innumerable varieties of planets and also the air. And in the air, there are variously colored clouds, and sometimes we see airplanes running from one place to another. Thus, the cosmic manifestation is full of variety. But actually that variety is a manifestation of the external energy of the Supreme Lord, and that energy is situated in him. Now, the Lord, after manifesting his energy, appeared within the creation of his energy, which is simultaneously one and different from him. And therefore, the demigods offered their respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who manifests himself in such varieties. There are some philosophers called non-dualists, who, because of their impersonal conception, think that varieties are false. In this verse, it is specifically stated, Yo Mayaya Virachitam. Having this idea that spiritual is just like, it's like a light, or it's a substance. It's like one homogeneous substance. This indicates that the varieties are a manifestation of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, because the energy is non-different from the Godhead, the varieties are also factual. In other words, like we say, this world's an illusion. At the same time, we say it's not an illusion. We mean that the matter is temporary. But what you're seeing at this point, you're actually seeing it. It's not a figment of your imagination. You are seeing it, but when, sometimes we might say this world is a world of illusion. And at the same time, we say, no, but it's real. Well, is it real or is it illusion? Like, make up your mind. What is meant that by real is the word sat. And we know sat means eternal. Right? Sat Chit Ananda. And then the word for temporary or unreal is asat. And it simply means matter and spirit, because matter doesn't last. So it's called asat, and spirit lasts forever. It's called sat. So if sat means real, unsat means unreal. So unreal in the sense it doesn't exist eternally. But not unreal in the sense that matter is not manifest for some time. Anyway, this is philosophy class, but Prabhupada talks a lot about it, so we're talking about it. The material varieties may be temporary, but they are not false. They are a reflection of the spiritual varieties. That's another important point. There's a lot of similarities to this world, although you may not realize it or understand it. There's a lot of similarities between this world and the spiritual world. And, Prabhupada uses so many examples. We use examples in our preaching to illustrate these things. Because there are similarities. There are people, there are animals, there are houses, there are cows. There's milk. There's parties. There's eating. There's all these things, but it's not like it is here, but it exists there. So oftentimes you'll see Prabhupada say, varieties. It's like, why is he stressing varieties? Only because people think, I don't think the Christians think this way, but coming from Eastern religions, they think spirituality is a kind of oneness. There's no variety, no people, no relationships. And we know why they think that way, because if there are varieties in this world, then if spirituality is the opposite of this world, then just whatever is opposite, that's how you define spirituality, right? Even though you might be totally assuming that opposites, well, you are not totally, you are. No, you are totally. Anyone who makes an assumption that the opposite of material is spiritual usually is going to get it wrong. So, well, if there are varieties here, then the opposite is spiritual. There aren't any variety, right? So now I'm self-realized. I figured it out. It's just the opposite, If here we have relationships, there it's just one. We're all one. It's just one consciousness, one being, like that. In a sense, there's truth to that on a preliminary level of understanding. But it's a nihilistic philosophy, because I don't know about you, but it'd be pretty hard to live alone for eternity. I mean, people just had a problem with COVID. That was only 2 years. Being alone, that was hard. Or even not even being alone with your family, even for some people, that was difficult. What to speak of being alone with yourself? No interaction, no relationship. It's interesting that people would think that's liberation and that's desirable, when in reality, we don't desire that. Maybe they think it'll be different there, but Prabhupada's point is it's not really different. And then, as we know, Prabhupada talks about people who become desireless, at least for a while, and become one with Brahman, because there's if you have no desire, there's no you. So once there's no you, you can become one with Brahman, because there's no I, because as soon as you say I, you're going to say want after it or something personal, right? So there's no desire, so there's no I don't want anything. The I is gone. So they maintain that state of no I, and they become one in Brahman with no personal identity, until they say, I want to get out of here. And then they come down. Boom, because there was an identity, person. I'm a person. You can't stay in Brahman realization if you have an identity, because it's a merging of identity. Did I bore you all with that? Are you all more, did you figure, I thought I knew all this stuff, and still you started explaining it. Anyway, this is just like a philosophy class. Not everyone's interested in philosophy. So we can go to the next verse. This is verse 57. So yang stiti bhyati karo pashamaya shishtang satvenana suragaram anomeya tattataha drishara tabra karunena vilokanena yachchiniketam amalam shipataravindam. Okay, translation. But that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is understood by truly authorized Vedic literature, and who has created peace and prosperity to destroy all calamities of the sake of the created world, be kind enough to bestow his glance upon the demigods. His merciful glance can supersede the beauty of the spotless lotus flower, which is the home of the goddess of fortune. Now we have a question. We should all have this question. Why do the demigods want him to glance? Is there some material motive? Like if you glance, you will protect us and the demons won't harass us? Or are they asking for a glance that will enhance their relationship with him? Let's read the purport, and if Prabhupada doesn't explain it, then we'll talk about it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the origin of the cosmic manifestation, is covered by the wonderful activities of material nature, just as outer space or the illumination of the sun and the moon is sometimes covered by clouds or dust. It is very difficult to find the origin of the cosmic manifestation. Therefore, material scientists conclude that nature is the ultimate cause of all manifestations. In other words, Prabhupada is saying, why is atheism so prominent, and why do scientists not want to acknowledge the ultimate cause? It's because they don't see it. They only see the manifestations, and they think, well, everything's fine, there must be no God. I mean, it's a way of thinking, not logical necessarily, but that's why they think. Like everything's going, people say there's no God. Hello, everything's going on. Yeah, that's because there's no God. Everything's going on. All right. You try to figure that out, that logic. Why do you need a God? Everything's fine. No, that's why everything is fine. No, no, no. You can't see him. You can't show him to me. You can't prove him. Everything's just going on without him. That's interesting way of thinking, don't you think? I had a realization the other day that someone says, there's no God. And I say, no, 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 no. You're not looking for him. That's why you think there's no God. That's the actual point. And you can ask them, are you looking? Are you trying to find him? Are you like, and if they're honest, likely they would say no. Well, that's why you don't see him. You're not looking. Okay. But from Shastra or authentic literature, like Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, we understand that behind this wonderful cosmic manifestation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in order to maintain the regular procedures of the cosmic manifestation and to be visible to the eyes of persons who are in the mode of goodness, the Lord appears. He is the cause of the creation and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. The demigods, therefore, prayed for his merciful glance upon them in order to be blessed. Oh, but, well, what it sounds like Prabhupada saying they wanted him to appear. The demigods wanted Krishna to appear to them. Now, the reason I brought up this question is because the demigods, they're devotees, but they're kind of mixed. So you may get pure prayers and you may get prayers to protect them to, which is like, for neophyte devotees, quite natural to pray to Krishna to protect them, to maintain some material stability in their life. But they're not examples of pure, unmotivated devotional service. And so oftentimes you'll see there are stories in Bhagavatam where they're being harassed by the demons, the asuras, the ungodly, and they go to Krishna for shelter. That's because they believe in Krishna. But Prabhupada often says a pure devotee is like, if pure devotee has to ask Krishna for something material, they're extremely, extremely reluctant to do that because it's like, if you have a very good relationship with someone, you don't want to ask them for something. You just want to give. And if you really need something, you'd rather get it yourself. But they could give it to you, but it's very awkward to ask because it could upset the relationship. You probably know the story when Prabhupada asked Shyam Sundar to ask George Harrison if he would donate the money to print the Krishna book. And so the problem with people who are wealthy and famous is that people make friends with them in order to ask them for a favor. And so the first thing that George Harrison said when Shyam Sundar said, could you donate the money to print this book? He said, oh, he was like let down. Oh, so you guys are like everybody else. It's just like ruined it. Anyway, it all worked out. And Prabhupada knew it would work out, but it's just an example of of how a pure devotee is very reluctant to ask anything of Krishna because he feels like that would just ruin the relationship. So we're on 58. What did you say, Gauravani? We can go to 58, 59, or what? Well, we'll just keep going.
Yes, we stopped at 58, but you could keep going, Gurudev.
Yeah. This is 58, correct? Evam sura ganastha bhagavanta abhishtu tau labdha galokar yayatur achito gandamadanam. Maitreya said, O Vidura, thus the demigods worshipped with prayers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing as a sage Nara Narayana. The Lord glanced upon them with mercy and then departed for Gandhamadana hill. Stay tuned to see what he does next. Text 59. Abhimau bhai bhagavato hare angshavi hagato bharabhyaya chabhuva Krishna jadu kurudvaha kurudvaha. That Nara Narayana Rishi, who is a partial expansion of Krishna, has now appeared in the dynasties of Yadu and Kuru in the forms of Krishna and Arjuna, respectively, to mitigate the burden of the world. Okay, now it's getting confusing, right? I thought Krishna was the source of all incarnation, and now it's saying he's an expansion of Nara Narayana. Actually, the forms of the Lord come from Vishnu in the material world. That's how Krishna chooses to appear. Purport: Narayan is the Supreme Personality, and Nara is a part of the Supreme Personality, Narayan. Thus, the energy and the energetic together are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maitreya informed Vidura that Nara, the portion of Narayan, had appeared in the family of the Kurus, and that Narayan, the plenary portion of Krishna, had come as Krishna. Narayan, the plenary expansion of Krishna. Okay, it's getting interesting. With the purpose of delivering suffering humanity from the pangs of material burdens. In other words, Narayan Rishi was now present in the world in the forms of Krishna and Arjuna. So, different name. You know, if you try to understand the various incarnations of Krishna and how it all works, you need to make a chart. And probably someone has perhaps made a chart. But they're expansions and then portions of expansions and then empowered expansions who are not actually Krishna. They're Jiva. And different forms of Krishna himself when he's in different places. So I'm going to leave this purport as it is. And we'll go on because it's a pretty deep topic. But you can also be an avatar of Krishna Shakti. So you can do something wonderful, and then we would consider you a Shakti Avatar. Shakti means energy, Avesh means empowered. So you could be Shakti Avatar, which means you can be a Jiva soul, but you can act like a god. You know, it's like if I gave Chaitanya Dasi $1 billion, she could act like a god, even though she's not. She could act like a queen, even though she's not, right? So now she's an empowered queen. Not a real one, but she's living with $1 billion. You could probably live better than most queens, right? Or at least equivalent. So now you're an empowered queen, but you're still Jiva. You're not really a queen. But you're empowered with the Shaktis that a queen would have, like wealth. And then you can buy all your servants and palaces. So it's something like that. So that it's interesting because on 2 occasions, Prabhupada called his disciples Shaktivesh avatars. He didn't use that word. He just called them incarnations. Did you know that? 2 disciples. One disciple was an expert manager. And Prabhupada called him the incarnation of management. Like, you've got intelligence and ability, so that's coming from Krishna, and it's extraordinary. So because it's extraordinary, you're an incarnation. And then one devotee, Tripurari Swami, he was responsible for opening up book distribution in a huge way. And he just figured out how to do it. He always did better than everyone, and he trained everybody. And Prabhupada said he's the incarnation of book distribution. You know, it's like specially empowered to distribute books. And so, maybe you see a devotee and they do something extraordinary well, like, well, you're the incarnation of pujaris, you're the incarnation of cooks, you're the incarnation of whatever. that sense it's used, that this is a special power, it's not ordinary. Not everybody can do this. It's a special power. I give it to you. And so now a Jiva soul is Shakti Vaishyavatar. So then you have other, just to try to help you understand the vastness and the unlimited nature of incarnation. Sometimes you'll have a person who will expand and incarnate, or two people will expand and they'll incarnate in another person. So it's like, well, who is that person? Are they the so that's where it starts getting a little complicated. Sometimes you'll read in Bhagavatam, this person is a expansion of two people. Okay, what does your brain say about that? It's like we don't have experience of it. All we can say is okay. So sometimes when you're studying and all you can say is okay, because you don't know what else to say anyway. It's not within your experience. But these things are there. And then Prabhupada said another thing that all we can say is okay to is Krishna incarnates in every species. Wow. Be careful, if you kill a mosquito, that could be an avatar, right? You don't know. Krishna, well, maybe. And then you might say, Deepa says, I want the Shastra where all the scheduled mosquito incarnations are, to make sure I don't kill it. Yeah. No, you won't find the Shastra. It's not there. But Prabhupada said that Krishna wants to deliver every form of life. That's amazing. So he'll incarnate in those forms. So the incarnation, it's not like, it's not like so easy to figure it out, understand it. And I was thinking this morning, it's an interesting thing that I think, not just interesting, but it's important. Sometimes we want to know things that absolutely will make no difference to our liberation and love of Krishna, if we know them or don't know them. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, I'll get some question. Can you explain this? And I'm thinking, why do you need to know that? I have no idea what the answer is. I've never read it. I've never heard Prabhupada talk about it. I've never heard anybody talk about it. Maybe some Acharya may speak about it in some commentary, but I'm not aware of. But there are questions which are curiosity questions. And there are questions which we're curious about, but the answers will make a difference in our spiritual life. But there are questions where, whether you have the answer or not, will make absolutely no difference other than your curiosity is now curbed, fulfilled. So it's something to be aware of, that sometimes we get very eager to know things that doesn't really matter if we know them or not. If you know what I mean. Okay. So this is text 60. Well, are there any questions in chat, or just verses in chat?
There is a question from Balabhadra. Is Arjuna Krishna then?
I'm as bewildered as he is. I've never really understood the Nara Narayana as Krishna Arjuna. I haven't put two and two together. Maybe someone more intelligent than me, like Chaitanya Dasi, has figured it out. And I just got more confused when saying that they're expansions of Krishna and Arjuna, or Arjuna are expansions like of Nara Narayana. It's the only thing I can think of now is for particular Leelas that Krishna is taking these forms. I mean, you could shift it either way. They're expansions of Krishna or Krishna's expansion of them. Depends how many expansions you go down, It depends what you mean by Narayana and Krishna. But we often hear Krishna and Arjuna appeared as Nara Narayana Rishi. It's another form for another Leela, as far as I can understand. That's the best I could give you. A lot of times when these questions come up, I'm thinking, you need to get a commentary to the Bhagavatam, the commentaries that Prabhupada used, to see if it's there. And if it's not even there, and you've gone through every commentary, it's not important. It's just, sometimes this might sound like an excuse, Balabaja, but sometimes it's kind of like the story where Narada tells Krishna was putting the eye through an elephant through the eye of a needle. And he's thinking, well, how could he do that? And you're scratching your head. And it's like, or like the Brahman, not like the Brahman, like the Kappa, just say, wow, amazing. So Krishna can come as Nara Narayana, he can expand as from Nara Narayana, can work anyway because he is who he is. And I have no more clear information than you do on these sages of how, or, we need to investigate why Krishna appeared as Nara Narayana. Like, what was the purpose? What was the Leela? And why it has to have to be Krishna and Arjuna? What were they doing? And these are questions that right now I can't answer. Does anybody have an authoritative answer? Like it's read this somewhere? Or in a good speculation? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes we just have to say, wow, that's amazing. Okay. If you have any ideas, put it in the chat and we'll go from there. So text 60. Swaham bhimaninas chagner atmajam strin ajijan at pavakam papamanam cha suchim cha hutabodhanam. The predominating deity of fire begot in his wife Swaha 3 children named Pavaka, Pavamana, and Suchi, who exist by eating the oblations offered to the fire of sacrifice. Wow, isn't that interesting? The wife of the deity of fire is named Swaha. Swaha means offer. And when we do fire yajna, we say Swaha. I just thought that was interesting. After describing the descendants of the 13 wives of Dharma, who are all daughters of Daksha, Maitreya now describes the 14th daughter of Daksha, Swaha, and her 3 sons. Oblations offered in the sacrificial fire are meant for the demigods, and on behalf of the demigods, the 3 sons of Agni and Swaha, namely Pavaka, Pavamana, and Suchi, accept the offerings. Well, except the oblations in this context. In the Karmakanda context, yeah, the fire is an offering to the demigods, or at this time in history, that was common. But as we know, in the Vaishnava Homa, the fire is the mouth of Vishnu. And we may offer prayers to the demigods for their blessings. But as we know, if Krishna eats, demigods also get to eat. So everybody's happy. Text 61. Tebyong naya samabhavan chatvarning shat chapan sacha ta evaikan apanchashat shakam pitri pita mahai. From those 3 sons, another 45 descendants were generated who are also fire gods. The total number of fire gods is therefore 49, including the fathers and grandfathers. Okay, so one question is, how do you take care of so many children? You know the story. It's quite a sad story. In the Krishna book, it said, I think it was Maharaj Ugrasena had something like 4 quadrillion bodyguards. Is that the number? Does anyone remember? You know how much a quadrillion is? It's way up there. I think it's, does anyone know? You go million, billion, trillion, then quadrillion, perhaps? Anyway, it's more than a trillion. And he had, or maybe it was 4 million bodyguards, whatever it was. How do you fit 4 million bodyguards in a palace? You know, try to imagine that. So the devotees asked this question. It was a doubt they had, how is this possible? I don't know exactly what they were thinking, but Prabhupada thought it was just a doubt. And so Prabhupada didn't answer the question. And he said, you can't understand this. No, but it's hard to believe. We want to know. You can't understand it. They got in an argument. This, unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you want to look at it, there are some things in our present state that won't make sense. I bet the more you try to understand it, the more you just get a headache. So sometimes when Prabhupada was asked questions that were beyond the understanding of disciples, he wouldn't answer them because he would either say, you can't understand. It's not, no need to ask this question. Why are you asking this question? Or what else would he say? This is not important. Something like that. So naturally, everyone who reads Bhagavatam, they'll come across something and they'll think, how is this possible? And Prabhupada's main point is, like, we are very small and our experience is limited, right? I mean, I live in a little town and 99.999999% of the kids in this town have never been more than a few hundred miles from their home. Like they've never been definitely never been to another country, possibly not another state. And even if you have been to another country, another state, boy, how many planets have you been to lately? And how many universes have you been to? How many galaxies have you been through? So Prabhupada's point was, okay, you can doubt this, but where have you been? What do you know? It's like a 4-year-old saying, E equals MC squared. I don't think so. I doubt it. It's something like that. So this question once a question came up to Prabhupada, a doubt about something in Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada basically was saying, we're very limited, so we really shouldn't doubt what's in the Bhagavatam because there's no way with our experience and our senses to verify things that are happening on other planets. Well, maybe Elon Musk will verify it for us someday. But you still have to be qualified, to see it. So even if he goes there, he may not see it. So Prabhupada just said, you're limited, you're small. Don't worry about these things. It's beyond your experience, but just because it's beyond your experience doesn't mean it didn't happen. That's why he said, you're small and your experience is limited. So it doesn't mean it didn't happen because you weren't there or you can't see it. So I have to keep that in mind. It's not meant to be an excuse for not explaining something or blowing you off, but in some cases, it's just a fact. It's beyond our understanding. Okay. If any, I'm going to just check the chat, see if you have a question or something. 1,000 trillion, that's a quadrillion. Mm-hmm. We do have some chats. Okay, this ought to wake us up. Anything extraordinary is coming from Mahima. anything extraordinary when we see in anyone's personality, can we always think this is actually coming from the Lord? Yeah. You may not want to call them the Shakti Vaishavatar. How should we think about these things? Yeah. Especially Mahima, especially when you have it, then you should think. You have two choices when you have some special power. It's either me or it's Krishna. And the devotee thinks it's Krishna. And non-devotees generally think it's me. And so that's called false ego or real ego. 1,000 trillion is quadrillion. So we have an answer, potential answer. 124, which is often recited as an invocation. It says that before reciting Bhagavatam, one should offer respectful obeisances unto Narayan, Srila Vasudeva, Mother Saraswati, and Nara Narayana Rishi. Oh, that's a good point. The supermost human being. I was wondering, as we don't speak about Nara Narayana Rishi that often, how come we should offer respectful obeisances? Another question nobody can answer today. It's like, Prabhupada never, it's like, why don't you know the answer? You're supposed to be a guru. You're bogus. You don't know the answer. Well, a lot of times, if not always, we don't know the answer because Prabhupada didn't talk about it. So then, you have two choices. Go into speculation mode or just say, I don't know. And going into speculation mode, it's okay if you have enough evidence to make a logical conclusion that could be backed up somewhere by something else that you know. But if you don't, then you don't know. And it may be that there is enough information. We just have to do a little more research or ask some pundits, some devotees who just, are very learned. That's what they do. But the other thing is, I think also why we don't know much about Nara Narayana, because we don't know much about anything that's not Rasik. And we don't know much about anything that's not like fundamental and essential to our bhakti. So, it's not like your average devotee is staying up late at night and said, I've got to understand this Nara Narayana Rishi because it's in the invocation of Bhagavatam. And like, I don't know how I could chant my rounds tomorrow if I don't understand it. It's not like that. But to understand other aspects of bhakti, yeah, we could stay up all night saying, I need to understand what are the glories of the holy name. That I need. What is the best way to associate? How do I get mercy? Yeah, those things, you're authorized to stay up late at night meditating on those things. So this is another reason that probably you're going to ask a lot of devotees about this, and some may know something more, but I don't think anyone's going to like sit you down and give you a talk on Nara Narayana Rishi. And if they do, I think maybe they have too much time on their hands. They should be doing some service. Take that statement with a grain of salt, but you know what I mean. It's not something Prabhupada focused on. So like, I'm writing a book. What's it on? Nara Narayana Rishi. Like, maybe not really what we would do. Markandeya is going to give us his understanding. My understanding, Arjuna, Krishna is an eternal manifestation of the Leela of the Gita. Okay. In all the universes, and Nara Narayana is a simultaneous double manifestation of the divine and human form. First one acts like the perfect master, and the second like perfect disciple. Yeah, it could be. But Prabhupada did say that personalities like Arjuna and Kunti, they never go back to Godhead. They just stay, and they just in next universe, and do the same Leela. Of course, Krishna remembers, Arjuna doesn't. And so the way they manifest, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, another answer is just the way Krishna wanted to do it. It's the best way to do it. This is how we manifest ourselves as expansions of Vishnu. And when Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita, he is in the Vishnu manifestation. And he's in the manifestation of Dharma, Samstarpanarta. He comes to establish Dharma. But when he's in Vrindavan, he's not speaking Bhagavad Gita. He's playing and he's manifesting his position as Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead. But when he leaves Vrindavan, then he's no longer in that form, and he's in the Vasudeva or Narayan feature, Vishnu feature, to establish Dharma, which he does by speaking the Gita. By speaking the Bhagavad Gita, by speaking the Bhagavad Gita. You go to India and you think everybody's like saying everything wrong. You ever have that experience? Why are you saying everything wrong? That's if you go to India and you think everyone's pronouncing Sanskrit wrong, you need to see a psychologist. You must be narcissistic. They're pronouncing it right. We're pronouncing it wrong because we pronounce it like we would pronounce our own language, right? Isn't it? We were once in Vrindavan, myself and Kostuba, we were in Vrindavan. And Krishna sucked up a kunda, kunda is like a little pond. I don't know how little, but kunda is a pond. And there's a place called Dava Nala Kunda, Dava Nala, Samsara Dava Nala Lida. Dava Nala is fire. The fire, Krishna, it was a kund of fire. And he's somehow call it a kund of fire, and Krishna sucked it up. So we went to one Baba and said, "Can you tell us where Davanala Kunda is?" Davanala Kunda is. He's like, "What?" And he's saying, Davanala Kunda. Like, what? He's like, this guy doesn't know where Davanala Kunda is. We go, Davanala Kunda. He goes, "Oh, Davanala Kunda." He couldn't understand what we were saying, because we were talking like Americans. Davanala, I want to go to Davanala Kunda, because we think that's how we're supposed to pronounce it. Davanala Kunda. It's over there. That was an interesting lesson. So if you ever feel like everyone's pronouncing things wrong when you go to India, I think the universe evolves around you, don't you? And whatever you do is right, even if it's not. Just a little feedback from the universe if you're in India. Okay. Chaitanya says, maybe that's the answer to my question. We offer obeisances because we want to get the perfect disciple Shakti before reading. It could be. I mean, as a generic answer, you pay obeisances to get the mercy of those you're paying obeisances to, isn't it? Or some empowerment. But it's nice, we can say that guru disciple. Like, so between me and my disciples, who's an incarnation of Narayan and who's an incarnation of Nara? No, it doesn't work that way, but it's a principle. And the principle, the beautiful principle is Arjuna surrendered. And Krishna says, surrender and serve, and then ask questions. Don't ask questions before you serve. Yeah. Guru Dave, I have a question. Do some service. I'll tell you later. Otherwise, like, enjoy the Guru. Just be curiosity. Markandeya's got another answer. They, Nara Narayana, lived in Badrikasham among all the most expert, exalted sages like Vyasadeva and his illustrious disciples to instruct the devotees and carrying the messages of Bhagavatam. Okay, so they know the Bhagavatam. So that's another reason. We're learning a lot about Nara Narayana. They know the Bhagavatam, so that's a good reason to pay obeisances. Question from Carmen Coletta. When Krishna is in every one of us, so we are part and part of Krishna, so we are all incarnations of Krishna. In the broadest sense, you could say that. But in the sense that incarnation is used for direct expansions of Krishna. So we're all expansions of Krishna. But we would never call ourselves incarnations because we're so far expanded that you don't really qualify as an incarnation when you get expanded too far. You know what I'm saying? You got to be in the original expansions to be an incarnation. And then if you're just like Jiva expansion, the best you can get is Shaktivesh, an empowered expansion. But yeah, everyone comes from Krishna. So in that sense, everyone's a mini incarnation. But not to be confused of thinking that I am Krishna, as some people would like to think. Okay, we have a morning walk. Next to Krishna is Narayan. Next to Narayan is Lord Shiva. And Chudananda. In the last part of Bhagavata, Krishna book, Mahavishnu says that Arjuna is of the capacity of Nara Narayana. So Nara Narayana Rishi is which? Prabhupada. Nara Narayana Rishi was a Shaktivesh avatar, equal to Narayan as Nara Narayana, somewhere I think. Okay, now we're more confused than ever. So it's a Shaktivesh avatar. Well, at least we know that. We're making progress. Now I thought I had it figured out before I found out. Balabhadra, you ruined my day. Before Shaktivesh, now it's Jiva, because Shaktivesh means Jiva, and how can Krishna be Jiva? Or is Narayan Rishi, is that referring to Arjuna? Narayan, anyway. Sometimes there is a positive sign of being confused. And when you're confused, you become humble and you realize there's a lot more to learn that you don't know. And Krishna is a lot bigger and deeper and wider and higher and smaller than you think. And so if we get confused, it's not on a topic like this. Maybe some other topic we get confused is not good. On a topic like this, if we get confused, because it's an avatar topic, it's like guaranteed there's going to be some figuring out to do. And if you feel more confused than you came in, then just allow that to humble you. Hare Krishna. Okay, I think we'll end class here. Because if we end class here, I can take lunch. And you can all go to sleep, right? Or get close to it or think about it. Okay, anyway. If any of you have friends who are like Bhagavatam Katha, like acharyas, you can ask them a little more about Nara Narayana. But I can't guarantee you won't be even more confused than you are now. Hare Krishna. Anyway, that's okay. It's sometimes when I read Prabhupada's books, then I'll read something and I don't understand it. It's like, okay, it's actually like a fuel to study, because you can't stop studying till you figure it out. So it's if you ever ask questions and you don't understand something and you're studying Prabhupada's books to try to figure it out, that's really good, because it focuses you, isn't it? More concentration, more energy. So it's not a problem. And some things are to be expected. One time Prabhupada asked for questions. Nobody had any questions. And he was upset. And he said, what, you think you know everything? So questions, if you have a question, you don't understand something, it's often a sign of intelligence. Like you picked up on something enough to understand you didn't understand it. That's good. Otherwise, you read right through it and you don't understand it, but you don't realize you don't understand it. So if you realize you don't understand it and you have a question and you try to research it, that's good. It's a sign of intelligence. So questions are good. If I were you, I would be concerned if I didn't have questions. That's not a good sign. Questions are a good sign. I would also be concerned if I have questions that every new bhakta knows the answer to, and I don't. That's also another concern. So questions are good, like the difficult ones. But if it's like, ABC questions, that's not good either. Right? So, okay. We will see you, I guess we'll see you Wednesday, right? Wednesday morning. Okay. Hare
His
Krishna.
Grace-
Everybody.
His Grace Mahatma Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.